Hi, my name's Angus. I'm 11 years old and you're watching Angus Investigates. My guest today is Jacky Guy. She's a scientist who works in Adrian Bird's lab in Edinburgh. So my first question for you is, how many years have you been working as a scientist and do you enjoy it?
Oh, that's a bit of a scary question. So I've been working as a scientist for 28 years, in Adrian Bird's lab for 23 years. And yes, I do enjoy it. I think if I didn't, it's quite hard work, so you wouldn't really do it if you didn't enjoy it. And I've always worked in labs where I feel like I can do the research that I really want to do. I
Mm-hmm.
think some labs, the boss tells you what to do and you have to do it, but I've always had people I've worked for have been quite good at letting people do the kind of research they want to do.
Can you explain how the experiment with mice might cure Rett syndrome one day?
So do you mean the one where we showed that Rett syndrome
Yeah.
is possibly reversible? Yeah. So the idea, so we have mice which don't have the MECP2 gene, so that's the gene that has mutations in Rett syndrome. And so the mice, they get sick, and it's not completely like how girls with Rett syndrome get sick, because mice obviously aren't humans and they don't speak and they're not as smart as people. But they have quite a lot of things which look like Rett syndrome. So they can't walk very well and they have tremors and they have different behaviours to normal mice. So in this experiment that we did, I think it was in about 2005, 2006,
Mm-hmm.
we made some mice, and they're kind of, it's an artificial system where we make mice where MECP2 is not working, but
Mm-hmm.
we can treat the mice and turn it back on again. And what we did was we had some mice which were sick and couldn't walk properly and had all these kind of things that looked like Rett syndrome. And we turned the MECP2 gene on
Mm-hmm.
and they got better. And that's kind of really surprising because a lot of neurological diseases, once the mouse or the person gets sick, something's broken in the brain and you can't really fix it.
Yeah.
But the thing with the mice, and we hope with girls with Rett syndrome, is that all the neurons in the brain are actually still there. They're just not really working properly. And so when we turned the MECP2 back on again, they started working properly and the mice started to run around a lot more. They just looked a lot more like normal mice.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really exciting because we just didn't know it was going to work.
Um,
Um, yeah, sorry, go
who?
ahead.
Who looks after the mice, and do they have any names at all?
They don't usually have names. They usually have numbers. So
Okay.
they'll have like some letters and numbers. It's not very personal, really. So they all live in a house that's not at our main lab. So they live in a house where they get cared for. The conditions are good for them to live in. And there's technicians who work there all the time. So they change the cages, give them food, check their water, check they're okay. And the actual researchers will just go and see them when they actually want to have a look at them or do an experiment. So I think when I was doing that experiment I talked about, I would go every once a week for maybe 3 or 4 hours for just once a week to see them. And the rest of the time the technicians are looking after them.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever met anyone with Rett syndrome, or do you know anyone with Rett syndrome?
I wouldn't say I know anyone kind of personally, but I have met parents and girls with Rett syndrome at some of the meetings that I've been to. Um, it's quite difficult to actually sort of get to know someone at a meeting, but I've kind of seen the girls there, and I've heard stories, from the people who care for them about the challenges they face and all the kind. There's a lot of different problems that they have, which I guess you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you still working at the lab at the moment, or are you working from home?
I'm working, well, it's kind of half and half. So I've just got back from the lab, so I work in the mornings. So we're not allowed to have as many people there at the moment. So we do either a morning shift or an afternoon shift. So it means I have to start earlier than I used to, and I have to be out of the lab by 1 o'clock so that someone else can come and take my place. So it's a bit stressful having to fit everything in a short time, but I usually work part time, so I think for me it's probably a bit easier than for some of the people who work full time and usually just stay as long as they want to finish an experiment.
When you are not working, what do you like to do?
I like to do all kind of things which are making stuff. So lots of crafts. I like knitting, sewing, weaving, spinning, cooking. I quite like baking when I get time. Growing plants and stuff in the garden. So it's all kind of like making stuff, I think. Yeah. Not so much sports, but yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for talking to me today about this, and it's very interesting to find out about everything, about all the science stuff that you do in the lab and how the mice are taken care of and stuff. Okay.
Oh, you're very welcome. I don't usually like doing interviews at all, but this one has been quite enjoyable, so I think you've done a good job there.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.